Good day to you all. This is Creative Works by Annie, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be working on the Crown of Skulls pattern. If you are unfamiliar with this, this is the second pattern I ever wrote in my pattern writing career. And if you don't have your copy yet, I will have a link to it to both my Etsy and Ravelry page so you can pick up your copy. And even if you can't read the pattern, you can have it sitting there next to you, and you can work it along with me, and maybe you'll learn how to read a pattern a little bit. Mine are kind of a wordy pattern, so you'll be able to work alongside that, as well as you'll be helping support me and my artistry. So let's begin. I'm working with my favorite Red Heart yarn, and I will also have a link to that below. We're going to be working it in the off-white or ecru today because it's a little easier to see on the video. And I have my handy dandy size 6 hook, which is about 1.75 millimeter. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to start with a slip stitch, and you can start with a magic ring if you would like to, but I prefer a slip stitch. And I'm going to chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'm going to join to make a little loop. Okay, as you see, I flipped over my tail because I'm going to be working on top of that. It doesn't want to cooperate for the camera. I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to put 8 single crochet in this loop I just made here. It does not want to work for the camera. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We're going to join with a slip stitch right into that first single crochet there, and I'm going to continue working over my tail. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a triple crochet in that same stitch there. Oop, that was a double. I need a triple. 1, 2, there we go. There's my triple. So that's our first 2 triple crochets. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put 2 triple crochets in this next stitch here. If my fingers will allow me. My fingers are a little swollen today, but it is what it is. So some days my fingers are nice and skinny, some days they're nice and chubby like today. I have 2 autoimmune diseases, so each day brings a new adventure. Okay, so in each one of those stitches I'm going to be putting 2 triples, and in between those 2 triples I'm going to be making a chain 3. Still working over my tail. That one tucked in there. Because I can work over my tails like that because my slip stitch is there, so I know it's nice and secure. My 40 or almost 40 years of crocheting, I have yet to master that. Yep, I've been crocheting for 40 years. I taught myself how to crochet when I was 8 years old. Learned it from a book, a Reader's Digest book, on how to do almost anything. So books are important. One, 2, 3. And this should be our last one. I'm going to do my last chain 3, 1, 2, 3, join at the top of my beginning chain 3 there, and let's count and make sure we have the correct amount. We should have 16 triple crochets and 8 chain spaces. So let's count the chain spaces first since that's the easiest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we should have 16 triples. That beginning chain, remember, counts as a first triple. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We're all set to go for round 3. Now, to slip stitch makes it just a little bit easier to slip stitch into this chain space. I'm just going to chain 1 and then slip stitch into there. Okay, it kind of makes it a little neater, and it just makes it faster and easier. So you'll see me doing that a lot when we work this pattern. So now that we are in that chain space, we're going to chain 3. And we're going to put 2 double crochets in that same spot there. Okay. I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to put 3 double crochets right in this next chain space. Chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 double crochets. We're going to keep doing that all the way around. Since this is a little bit bigger pattern and you're working with me on this, do you have your snacks and your beverages ready? Oh, I made a mess, or I missed. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have this bracelet covered up, but I have this one still jingle jangling, so slight jingles. But at least it's not in stereo, we will say. 2, 3, 4, 5. I know some don't like the jingle jangles of my bracelets, and others are like, yeah, you be you. Well, you know what? Today, I'm appeasing both sides. My bracelets mean stuff to me. Each one represents a different family member or a different time in my life and stuff like that. So I wear my bracelets. Some wear their hearts on their sleeves. I wear bracelets on my sleeves. Okay, so just to review, we worked our way, slip stitched into this chain space, chained 3, made 2 double crochets, chained 5, skipped these 2 stitches, put 3 double crochets in this chain space, chained 5, skipped the 2 stitches, put 3 double crochets here, and we did that all the way around, joining with a slip stitch at the top of that beginning chain. So now we are on row 4. I better get something to mark my... I will use it so that way I know which row I'm on. I'm going to use my blank toe tag. Yes, it's a toe tag. See? And I got that from an order that I purchased from a friend of mine. He put that in there. Okay, so let's start round 4. Yeah, my life is just absolutely fun and silliness. So now we are going to slip stitch into this middle stitch here. Okay. And we're going to chain 1. And we're going to single crochet in that same stitch. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And in this chain space, we're going to put a double crochet, a chain 3, and a double crochet. 1, 2, 3. DC. then 1, 2, 3. And we're going to skip this stitch right here, and we're going to put a single crochet right there. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a double crochet, a chain 3, and a double crochet in that same space. Chain 3. Put a single crochet in there. Let's do a quick little review. Now I slip stitched into this center stitch right here, chained 3, and in here I put a double crochet, a chain 3, and a double crochet. I chained 3, put a single crochet in that center stitch one more time, chained 3, double crochet, chain 3, double crochet in that chain space, chained 3, and then put a single crochet in that middle stitch there. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that all the way around. 1, 2, 3, double crochet, 1, 2, 3. I crochet pretty fast, so if this is too fast for you, feel free to pause it at any time. Also, if you go to your settings on your YouTube page, which I used to remember, I know down here-ish is the little gear if you're on the laptop, and you can adjust the speed of which I'm talking, so you can slow me down or you can make me go a little faster. It's up to you. On the telephone or cell phone, I'm not 100% sure where that little gear is, but it works the same way. Okay, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. 1, 2, 3. I'll do another review once I get to the edge or to the joining there. This is a relatively simple pattern. It's just lengthy. Okay. So now that I'm back all the way around, I do my final chain 3 and I put a slip stitch into that first single crochet there. Let's do another little quick review for you. So I slip stitched into the middle, chained 1, made my single crochet right there, chained 3, and then I put a double crochet, chain 3, double crochet in that chain space, chain 3, skipped a stitch, put a single crochet in that middle stitch there, chain 3, skipped that stitch, and put a double crochet, chain 3, double crochet in that chain space, and I did that all the way around. Okay, round 5. We are going to, what I like to do, well, you can just slip stitch your way through the chains and into this chain space right here, because this is the one we're going to be working in between these two double crochets here. But what I like to do is just easier. I chain 1, slip stitch in there, chain 1, slip stitch in there. Okay, it just gets me there a little faster, and voila. So now I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to put a double crochet in that same space. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put another which I'm going to put a DC tog or a 2 DC tog in that same space. I'm going to chain 3, and let me show you how to do those if you're not familiar with. I use those a lot in my patterns. So if you're not familiar with it, let me review real quick. So what you do is you start off by making a regular, almost like a half of a double crochet. Okay. Then you act like you're going to make another double crochet, but half of one again. Then you'll have 3 loops on there. Okay, this is also known as like a 2D cluster. Okay, so once again, you're making a half a double crochet, and then make another half a double crochet. You have 3 loops on, pull it through, and you have your 2DC cluster or 2DC tog. Okay, so for this little section, we do need 4 of those. So you have your beginning one right here, and you have 3 regulars with 3 chains in between. And each one of those chains is 3 single chains, makes up 1 chain space. Now I'm going to chain 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put 4 DC togs and 3 of the chain 3 spaces in here, okay? So we start our DC tog, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, DC tog, chain 3, and then we do another DC tog, chain 3, and we DC tog. Now we're going to chain 3. We're going to put our DC tog fan right here, which this is basically what this is a DC tog fan. So we're going to put 2 DC in there again. Chain 3, 2 DC tog, chain 3, 2 DC tog, chain 3. We're just going to keep doing that all the way around, and so I will meet you when we get over here for our last chain 3. See you in a minute. Okay, I am back, and I finished all my little things here, and so you're going to end with a chain 3, and you're going to put a slip stitch into the top of that first double crochet right there. Okay, so let me do a quick review with you. We did our first or our beginning 2 DC togs by doing a chain 2 and a double crochet. Then we did a chain 3. We put our DC tog in there, chain 3, DC tog, chain 3, DC tog. Then we did a chain 3, skipping these 2 chains and this single crochet here, working into our main again. We did a double crochet or 2 DC tog, chain 3, 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 and we skipped these chains and we put a DC tog, chain 3, DC tog, chain 3, DC tog, chain 3, DC tog, chain 3. Okay, and we did that all the way around, and that was round 5. I did go ahead and put some tape on my finger. If you haven't seen this trick before from me or anybody else, it's because the thread glides over there and sometimes it cuts into my hand. Since this is going to be long crochet, I'm going to do a little protecting on my finger there. Okay, so now we're just going to slip stitch right into that chain space, and we are going to start round 6. So we're now going to chain 1. We're going to single crochet in that same place. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to single crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, and single crochet in that next chain space. Now we're going to chain 3 once more. And we're going to put 3 double crochets in this chain space right here. So 1, 2, 3. Going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Put a single, we're going to skip this stitch right here, put a single crochet here, chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Skip this stitch, put a single crochet there, chain 3. Skip this stitch, put a single crochet there, chain 3, put 3 double crochets in this next chain space here, and we're going to do that all the way around. So real quick, I'll do the next one with you too. So you chain 3, single crochet in there, chain 3, single crochet, chain 3, single crochet, chain 3, put 3 double crochets in here, and then we chain 3, and then we work that all the way around. And so I'm going to keep going, and I'll meet you back when we do our joining right over here. I'll see you in a bit. Okay, I am on my last chain 3 of this round, so 1, 2, 3, and we're going to join with a slip stitch into this first single crochet right here. Okay, and now I'm going to pull this out just a little bit, and let's do a quick little review. So what we did was we slip stitched into this first chain space here, and then we made a chain 1 and we single crocheted in that same space. I then chained 3, skipped the stitch, put a single crochet in the next chain space, chained 3, skipped the stitch, put a single crochet in that next chain space. I then chained 3, skipped this stitch, put 3 double crochets in this chain space, chained 3, skipped the stitch, put a single crochet in the next chain space, chained 3, skipped the stitch, single crochet in the next one, chain 3, skip the stitch, single crochet in the next one, chain 3, and 3 double crochets, and I did that all the way around. So now we are on round 7. So we are going to slip stitch into this next chain space right here, if my hook lets me. We're going to chain 1, put a single crochet in that same space. Now I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to skip this stitch and put a single crochet in this next stitch right here. I am then going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to skip this stitch, skip this chain space, skip the stitch right here, and in this middle one I am going to put a DC tog, a chain 2, and another DC tog. Remember, that's our 2 DC tog, or you can call it a 2 DC cluster. Just to make things easier, it's just going to be a DC tog for the video, okay? And that's actually going to be our shell throughout the whole pattern. So when I refer to a shell, this is what it's going to be: a DC tog, a chain 2, and a DC tog. So now we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip this stitch, skip the chain space, skip the stitch, and put a single crochet in the next chain space. Chain 4, skip stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 4, skipping the single crochet here, skipping this chain, skipping this stitch, working a shell. Remember, that's the 2 DC tog, chain 2 and 2 DC tog in there. Chain 4. I'm going to do this next one, and then I'll do a quick review for you. Okay, let's finish up our shell. Let's do a quick review. So what we did was we slip stitched into that shell space, we chained 4, skipped stitch, and single crocheted into the next shell space, chained 4, we skipped the stitch, skipped the chain space, skipped that first stitch, and in the middle stitch we did a DC tog, chain 2 and a DC tog, which will be a shell throughout the whole entire pattern. Then we did a chain 4, skip the stitch, skip the chain, skip the stitch, and put a single crochet in the next one. Chain 4, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 4, and in that middle stitch there, we did our shell. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that all the way around, and I will meet you at the end. I will see you in a little bit. Okay, I am back, and I am on my last chain 4, and I'm going to put a slip stitch in top of that first single crochet right there. Okay, so now let's do a quick little review. Spread out just a little bit. Okay, so what I did was I slip stitched into that chain space, chained 1 and put a single crochet in that same space, chained 4, put a single crochet in that chain space, chained 4, move thread, chained 4, and then in the middle of the stitches of those 3, I did a shell, which is a DC tog, a chain 2 and a DC tog. I chained 4, skipped, doily doesn't want to turn with me. I skipped the stitch, skipped the chain space, skipped that stitch, put a single crochet in that next chain space, chained 4, single crochet in the next chain space, chained 4, skipping the stitch and the chain space and the stitch, putting a shell in that one, and I did that all the way around. So let's start round 8. So now we're going to slip stitch into that next chain space right there. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to put a double crochet in there. We're making our beginning shell. So from now on, this is what a beginning shell is going to be. Our chain 2, our double crochet, chain 2, and then our DC tog. Now we're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip all this, and then in the center of this shell space, we're going to work another shell. One, 2. So this is a faster and easier round right here. We're going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in this center chain space, we're going to put another shell, which is the 2 DC tog, chain 2, and a 2 DC tog. Going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And in that shell space right there, we're going to put another shell, and I will review in just a moment. I'm going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That makes it a little easier for me to review with you. See, it's a relatively easier round. So what we did was we did our beginning shell, which is a chain 2, a double crochet, a chain 2, and a DC tog. Then we're going to chain 5, we're going to skip the stitch, skip the chain, skip the stitch, and in the middle of this shell right here, we're going to put another shell. Remember, that's our DC tog, chain 2, DC tog. We're going to chain 5, we're going to skip this, skip the chain, skip the stitch, put a DC tog in that center chain space right there. Chain 5, and then once again put a shell inside of the shell. That's what this is considered. You're working that right inside that one. Okay, so keep doing that all the way around, and I will meet you when we get right here. Okay, I am working on my last chain 5 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to put a slip stitch into that top of that first double crochet there. Okay, now let's do a quick review before we move on. What I did was I did our beginning shell space, or our beginning shell, which is a chain 2, a double crochet, chain 2, and a DC tog, chained 5, and in the center of this shell space, I worked another shell, which is the DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chained 5, skipped this chain space, and in this chain space, the middle one, I worked a shell, chained 5, skipped this chain space, and in this shell space right here, this little chain 2 space in between these two, worked another shell. So I did that all the way around, and then I joined with a slip stitch top of that beginning double crochet. So now we are going to slip stitch right into the center of that one, and we're going to work our beginning shell, chain 2, DC tog or double crochet, chain 2, DC tog, now I got caught here. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put a single crochet in this chain space. Chain 3, put a shell in the shell space, chain 3, single crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, shell in the next shell space. I will review in just a moment. One, 2, 3. Okie dokie. Now what we did here was we slip stitched into the center of that beginning shell, and we worked another beginning shell, which is the chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, DC tog. I then chained 3 and put a single crochet in this chain space. Chained 3, worked a shell in this shell space, chained 3, single crochet in this chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell space, and I'm going to continue that all the way around. So I will see you in just a moment. Okay, I am all set working at my last little section here. So I did my shell in the shell, chain 3, single crochet in that chain space, chain 3, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet right there. Okay, so let's do a quick little review. I did my beginning shell, remember that's the chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, and DC tog. I then did a chain 3, put a single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell space, chain 3, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the next shell space, and I did that all the way around. Okay, let's get started on round 10. Okay, so what I did was I chained 2, double crochet in there, chain 2, DC tog in that same space right there. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a single crochet in this chain space, and I'm going to put a single crochet into the next stitch, and then I'm going to put a single crochet in the chain space. Okay, so single crochet, single crochet, single crochet, and then a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and a shell in the next shell space. Going to chain 3, going to put a single crochet in that chain space there, single crochet in that stitch, and a single crochet in that chain space. That's going to give us 3 right in a row. I'm going to chain 3, put a shell in the shell space, and I will review in just a moment. My hands are slipping today. Okay, so what we did was we did our beginning shell, chained 3, put a single crochet in the chain space, single crochet in the next stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the next shell space, chain 3, single crochet in the chain space, single crochet in the stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the next shell space. We're going to keep repeating that all the way around. And so I will see you when we get to the joining. Okay, I'm on my last little section here. And I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a single crochet in this chain space, single crochet in the stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, and then join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet there. Let's do a quick review before we move on to round 11. So what we did was we did a beginning shell right here, chain 3, single crochet in the chain space, single crochet in the stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell space, chain 3, single crochet in the chain space, single crochet in the stitch, single crochet in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell space. And we did that all the way around. So let's start round 11. We are going to slip stitch right into that shell space and work another beginning shell. Remember, that's chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, and then a DC tog. We are now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a half double crochet into this chain space. We're going to put a half double crochet into the next 3 stitches, if my hook lets me. 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to put a half double crochet in the chain space. We're now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put a shell in the shell space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a half double crochet in this chain space and a half double crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches. And a half double crochet in the next chain space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. I will review in just a moment. Okie dokie. We did our beginning chain, our beginning shell inside of that shell space, chain 3. We worked a half double crochet in the chain space and a half double crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches, and then a half double crochet in the chain space. This will give us a total of 5 half double crochets in this little section right here. We then chained 3, put a shell in the next shell space, chain 3, we did our half double crochet in the chain space, a half double in each one of the next 3, and a half double in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the next shell space. We're going to do that all the way around till we get to the beginning, and I will meet you right there at the joining. Okay, see you in a bit. Okay, I am at the very end. I just realized that I say okay a lot. I'll try to change that for the next round. So what I did was I did my shell and shell, chain 3, half double in the shell or in the chain space, half double in the chain in the next stitch, half double in the next one, and half double in the next one. Then we're going to half double crochet in this chain space. We're going to end with a chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to join in the beginning of that DC right there. Okay, let's do a quick review before we move on to round 12. we did our beginning shell, and then we did our chain 3 and our half double crochet in the chain space. We then did a half double crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches, a half double in that chain space, a chain 3, and a shell in the shell space, chain 3, half double in the chain space, half double in each of the next 3, half double in the chain space, chain 3, and then we did our shell in the shell. We did that all the way around. Okay, let's get started on round 12. Just like we did before, we are going to slip stitch into the next shell space. We're going to work our beginning shell, which is the chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, and then the DC tog. We are now going to chain 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip this chain space, skip what is now considered a hidden stitch, because if you can see there, you don't really have a stitch to work into. That's the weird thing about half double crochets. They like to trick you. So we're going to skip the chain space, skip what's now considered a hidden stitch, and we're going to work in the middle 3. See those middle 3 right there? And we're going to put a single crochet in each one of those stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to skip this stitch, skip the chain space, and work a shell in the shell space. Going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once again, we're going to skip the chain space, skip that first half double crochet because it's now considered a hidden stitch. We're going to put a single crochet in each of the middle 3 stitches. Going to chain 5 and put a shell in the shell space. I'll review in just a moment. Okie dokie here. We did our beginning shell in the shell space, our chain 5. We skipped the chain space, skipped that first stitch there, put a single crochet in each one of the next 3. We then chained 5, shell in the shell space, chain 5, skip the shell or skip the chain, skip the first stitch, and put a single crochet in each one of the middle 3 stitches, chain 5, and then put a shell in the shell space. We're going to continue that all the way around until we do our joining. So I will meet you when we get right there. We are back and at the end of round 12. So I did my shell in my shell, chained 5, skipped the chain space, skipped that first stitch, remember it's considered a hidden stitch, and in the next 3 we did a single crochet in each, chained 5. We're going to join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet there. Let's do a quick review. Yes, it's going to kind of curl just a little bit. It will straighten out more, so don't panic. Try not to panic. This doily will end up needing to be blocked, which I will have a separate video where you can watch me block it. Okay, but let's review round 12. We did our beginning shell in the shell space, chained 5, skipped the chain space, skipped that first stitch, worked a single crochet in each one of the next 3. We chained 5. Did our shell and shell, chained 5, skipped the chain space, skipped the first stitch, put a single crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches. So make sure you're centering those, okay? And then you're chaining 5, shell in the next shell space, and you worked that all the way around. So let's start round 13. So we're going to work our beginning here again. I have my space heater working, so I apologize for that slight humming type noise. But it's a little chilly today. So now that we have our beginning shell, I'm going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, and put a single crochet in that next one. We're going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, putting a shell in the next shell space. Chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, and put a single crochet in the next one. Chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and do our shell in the shell space there. I'll review in just a moment. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So we do our beginning shell in the shell space. We chain 7. Skip the chain space there, skip the first stitch, put a single crochet in the next one, skip the stitch, we chained 7, and we put a shell in the shell space. So 7, skip the chain, skip the stitch, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 7, skip the stitch, skip the chain space, put a shell in the shell space. And you're going to repeat that all the way around. And I will see you at the joining. We are now at the end of round 13. So I did my shell in the shell space, chained 7, skipped the chain, skipped the first stitch there, single crochet in the next one, chain 7, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet there. Okay, let's do a quick review. So we did our beginning shell in the shell space, chain 7, skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, put a single crochet in the next one, chain 7, we put a shell in the next shell space, and we did that all the way around. This round's going to be just as easy, if not easier for you. So we're going to slip stitch into that beginning chain, or beginning shell right there. We're going to do our beginning shell, same as we did before. Now we're going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the stitch, skip the chain space, and put a shell in the next shell space. We're going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Shell in the shell space. I'll review in just a moment. Okay. So basically, did our beginning shell right here, chain 10, shell in the shell space, chain 10, shell in the shell space. We do that all the way around. Okay, I will meet you when we get right over here. We are now finishing round 15. Did our shell in the shell space, and we did our chain 10. We are now going to join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet there. Let's do a quick review. We did our beginning shell, our chain 10. We skipped the chain space, skipped the stitch, skipped the chain space, and did a shell in the next shell. We chained 10, working the shell in the next shell, and we did that all the way around. So now let's turn our page. Nope, not ready to turn the page yet. Because we are on round 15. So I'm sorry if my camera's a little funky today. I had to play with a new setup because I lost a part somewhere and I don't know where it's at. So I had to cut a bolt and hook it up a different way, and yeah. It's a good thing I have some tool skills. That's all I know. That's all I can say. Okay, let's start round 15. So we're going to slip into that shell right there and work our beginning shell spay or beginning shell. Same as we've been doing. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and around this chain right here, we're going to put 9 single crochets. Now, make sure you put them a little on the tighter side, at least the first one and the last one, so you get a nice clean center. But yeah, try to work those as neat as you can. It'll look better in the end, okay? I promise. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Then you can kind of pinch them together just a bit if you want. Okay. They'll kind of work together in the next rounds anyways, so you don't really have to worry about that too much. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. Put 9 single crochets in that chain space. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Chain 3. Put our shell in the shell. I will review in just a moment. Killy-dokily there. We worked our beginning shell in the beginning shell space right there. Chain 3. We then put 9 single crochet in the chain space. Chain 3, shell in the shell space. Chain 3, 9 single crochet in the chain space. Chain 3, and shell in the shell space. We are going to continue doing that all the way around, and once again I will see you right at the joining. Now we just are finishing up our last little section right here. We're going to join with a slip stitch into that first double crochet. Let's do a little quick review here. We did our beginning shell, chain 3, and then we worked 9 single crochets in the chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell space, chain 3, 9 single crochets in the chain space there, and then chain 3, shell in the shell space, and we did that all the way around. Now we are all set to go for round 16. We are going to slip stitch into the chain space right there. We're going to work something a little different this time because we need to expand out as our doily grows. So we're going to chain 2, double crochet, chain 2, And then we're going to put a shell. Oh, if I can work it correctly there. Chain 2, put another DC tog. So what we're going to end up with is triples right there with 2 chain spaces. Okay? So now we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, and single crochet in each one of the next 7 stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in this shell space, we're going to do a DC tog, chain 2, and a shell. Okay, or you can look at it as we're going to do a shell, chain 2, DC tog, or you could do a DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog. Okay? So DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, and then we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, single crochet in each one of the next stitches, or 7 stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. And in here, once again, we're going to put the DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog. I will review in just a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, here. Now we did our slip stitch into our beginning shell here. We acted like we were doing our beginning. And so we ended up with the 3 right there, the beginning. So we slip stitched into our beginning chain there. We chained 2, made our double crochet, chain 2, we did our DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 4, skip the chain space, skip the first stitch. We worked a single crochet in each one of the next 7 stitches. We then chained 4, skipped that last stitch, skipped that chain space, and in here we ended up with the 3 DC togs and the 2 chain spaces in between. So we DC togged, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 4, skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, single crochet in each one of the next 7 stitches, chain 4, skip the stitch, skip the chain space, and once again we ended up with the 3 DC tog and the 2 chain spaces in between. Okay, so we're going to work that all the way around, and I will meet you at the end. Don't forget, you need 3 DC togs in each one of those things, okay? I'll meet you on the other side. We are back, and I am at the end of round 16. So remember that you have to do your 3 DC tog in there. Chain 2, then DC tog. And make sure before you get started on the next round, you have 3 in each one of those shells, okay? So make sure you have 3. So right now, go and check that out. Pause the video and go make sure you have 3 in each one of those, because it's very important, okay? Because you don't want to frog. You don't want to frog. Once you get deep into round 17, so count those right now, okay? So Now we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip this chain space, skip the first stitch, and put a single crochet in each one of the next 7 stitches. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip the stitch, skip the chain space, and join with a slip stitch on top of that first DC there. Okay, now I hope you are double and triple checking that you have 3 of the DC togs in each one of those chain spaces there. So in our beginning shell, we worked our beginning DC tog, which is a chain 2 and a double crochet. Then we chained 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, all in that same space. Chain 4, skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, single crochet in each one of the next 7 stitches. Chain 4, skip the stitch, skip the chain space. We then worked a DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog in that shell space. Chain 4, skip chain, skip stitch, single crochet around in the next 7. Chain 4, skip stitch, skip the chain space, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog. Okay, and so we worked that all the way around. So, okay, we're going to move on. I hope you have 3 in each one of those, okay? I'm highlighting that because I myself have forgotten some of those before. Yes, and then had to do a little correction in there. So, or frog, depending on how bad it is. So let's get started on round 17. We are going to slip stitch into this first chain space right there, and we're going to work a normal beginning shell. So 1, 2, and double crochet, chain 2, and do our DC tog. We are then going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip this stitch right here, and then in this chain space we're going to work a regular shell stitch, or regular shell. Okay, so we have a shell, a chain 4, and a shell. We are now going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to skip this chain space, skip the first stitch, and we're going to single crochet in each of the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip the stitch, skip the chain space, working a shell in this chain space right here. We're now going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, working a shell in this next chain space right here. I will review in just a moment. Oh, golly dokey. What we did is we put our beginning shell in this first shell space, chain 4, and we worked another shell in that next chain space right there, giving us 2 chains or 2 shells right in this area. We then chained 4, skipped the chain space, skipped the stitch, single crocheted in each one of the next 5 stitches. Chain 4, skip the stitch, skip chain space, working a shell in the shell space. Chain 4, we worked another shell in that shell space. And we're going to work that all the way around. And then I will meet you back right here. See you soon. Okay, I just finished my round 17, and so let's do a quick review. We worked a beginning shell in this first chain space right here. We then chained 4 and worked another shell in this next chain space. Chain 4, skip chain space, skip that stitch, single crochet in each one of the next 5 stitches. Chain 4, skip the stitch, skip the chain space, working a shell in this chain space right here. Chain 4, and then we worked another shell in this chain space right here. And we did that all the way around. So now we are on round 18. I'm going to take a sip of coffee real quick. Okay. What's your beverage of choice? What are you drinking right now when you're crocheting with me? I got another cup of coffee because I'm a little tired today. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little quieter than normal because I'm kind of tired. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off this row by slip stitching in that chain space and working a beginning shell. We are now going to chain 2, 1, 2, and in this chain space right here, we're going to put a double crochet, a chain 4, and a double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, a double crochet. We're then going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. We're going to follow that by doing a chain 4. We're going to skip the chain space, skip the first stitch, and put a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip the stitch, skip the chain space, putting a shell in the shell space. We're going to chain 2, and in this chain space we're going to put a double crochet, a chain 4, and a double crochet. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. I'll review in just one moment. Okay, what we did was we made our beginning shell in that first space right there, chain 2, and in that chain space we did a double crochet, a chain 4, and a double crochet. We then chained 2 and worked another shell in the shell space. We chained 4, skipped the chain space, skipped the first stitch, and we did 3 single crochets. So a single crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches. We then chained 4, skipped the stitch, skipped the chain space, working a shell in the shell space. Chain 2, working a double crochet, a chain 4, and a double crochet in the chain space right here. Then we did a chain 2 and a double crochet or a shell in this next shell space. Okay, you do this all the way around, and I will meet you right here at the end. Talk to you soon. Okay, we just finished up round 18, so let's do a quick review. So we did our beginning shell, we did our chain 2, double crochet, chain 4, double crochet in this chain space, chain 2, shell in the shell space, chain 4, skipping the chain space, skipping the stitch, putting a single crochet in each one of the next 3 stitches, chain 4, skip chain space or skip the stitch, skip chain space, shell in the shell space, chain 2, in this chain space right here, we're going to put a double crochet, a chain 4 and a double crochet, chain 2, and putting a shell in the next shell space. And we did that all the way around. Let me move my camera a little bit here. Okay, we are now going to start round 19. We're going to start that by slip stitching into the chain space here and working our beginning shell. Going to chain 2, 1, 2, skipping this chain space and putting 9 double crochets in this chain space right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Chain 2, putting a shell in the shell space. Going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip this chain space, skip this first stitch, and put a triple crochet in that middle stitch there. Chain 3, skipping the stitch, skipping the chain space, and putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 2. Now I will give you a little tip. If you cannot put 9 double crochets in this chain space, you can always put a double crochet here, 7 here, and a double crochet right here, and that will give you your 9. The main thing is to get 9 double crochets in this area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Chain 2, then put a shell in the shell space. Those 9 double crochets are actually going to give us our bottom jaw of our skull. Now let's review. So we did our beginning shell, chain 2, skip the skip the chain space, working 9 double crochet in the next chain space, chain 2, shell in the next shell space, chain 3, skipping the chain space, skipping the stitch, triple crochet in the next one, chain 3, skipping the stitch, skipping the chain, putting a shell in the shell, chain 2, skipping the chain space, putting 9 double crochets in the next chain space, chain 2, and shell in the next shell space. We're going to continue doing that all the way around, and I will see you right over here. Okay, let's see. We are at the end of round 19, so let's do a quick review. We did a beginning shell right here. We worked 9 double crochets in this chain space, chain 2, working a shell in the shell space, chain 3, skipping the chain space, skipping the stitch, working a triple crochet in the middle there, chain 3, skip stitch, skip chain space, working a shell in the shell space, chain 2, working 9 double crochets in that middle chain space, chain 2, shell in the shell space, chain 3, skipping the chain, skipping the stitch, triple in the middle stitch, chain 3, skipping stitch, skipping chain space, shell in the shell space. And we did that all the way around. So let's get started on round 20. In this one, we are going to start working on the teeth of the skull. So we're going to slip stitch into that first chain there, and we're going to work our beginning shell. We're going to chain 2. we're going to put a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, we're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, and put a double crochet in the next one. Chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one, chain 1, skip stitch, and put a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. See? Okay, we are now going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to put a shell in the next shell space. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2, skipping this chain space right here and putting a double crochet in this next one. Chain 2, skipping the chain space, putting a shell in the next shell space. Chain 2. We're going to put a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one. Chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one. Chain 1, skip stitch, and put a double crochet in each of the next 2. Chain 2. And then we're going to put a shell in the next shell space. And I'll review in just a moment. Okay, dokie here. We did our beginning shell in the shell space, chain 2, skipping the chain space, working a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skipping the stitch, putting a double crochet in the next one, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next, chain 1, skip stitch, a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. We are then going to chain 2, working a shell in the shell space, chain 2, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in that next stitch, chain 2, putting a shell in the shell space. We're going to keep repeating that all the way around, and I will meet you when we get to the joining. See you there. Okay, we just finished round 20, so let's do a quick review. Did a beginning shell, that first chain space right there. We then chained 2, skipped the chain space, did a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next, chain 1, skip stitch, and double crochet in each of the next 2. We then chained 2, and we put a shell in the next shell space. Chain 2, skipping that chain space, we then put a double crochet in the next stitch. We chained 2, putting a shell in the next shell space. We chained 2, and we put a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skipping the stitch, we put a double crochet in the next one. Chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next, chain 1, skip stitch, double crochet in the next 2. So we did that all the way around. So let's get started with round 21. We're going to work our way into that shell space. 1, 2, double crochet, chain 2, working our beginning shell. We are now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the chain space and put a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skip the chain space, double crochet in the next stitch. Do that again. Chain 1, skip chain space, double crochet in the stitch. chain 1, skip chain space, put a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, putting a shell in the shell space. We are going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip this chain space right here and put a double crochet right in this next stitch. We're now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a single crochet around the side of this double crochet right there. And pulling it nice and tight. Going to chain 2, skipping that chain space and putting a shell in the next shell space. This is going to give us a little decorative element right there as we're going to skip that for the next round. After the shell, we're going to chain 3, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, skipping the chain space, double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, skipping the chain space, double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, putting a shell in the shell space. I'm going to put that little decorative element back in there again. Now if you cannot figure out how to do that, or you don't personally like the look of it, you can just put a double crochet and keep going. You don't have to do that little bump if you don't want to. I just like it because it adds a little extra pizzazz. Okay, so we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to put a double crochet in that stitch. Chain 3, putting a single crochet right around the side of that. Chain 2, then putting a shell in the shell space. And I will review in just a moment. Okay, so what we started off with is our beginning shell, like we do every row. Chain 3, and we are working a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet in each one of the last 2 stitches. Chain 3, putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 2, putting a double crochet in the stitch. We're going to chain 3, putting a single crochet right around the top of that double crochet, pulling it nice and tight. We're then going to chain 2 and putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 3, double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 1, skipping the chain, double crochet in the stitch, chain 1, skipping the chain, double crochet in the stitch, chain 1, double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches there. And we chained 3, skipping the chain space, shell in the next shell, chain 2, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in that next stitch, where then we chained 3, putting a single crochet around the top of that double crochet there. Let's see, am I still in the camera? I'm way up there. Let's review. So we did our beginning shell, we did our chain 3, our double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches. Chain 3, we put a shell in the shell space, chain 2, then we made our little bump by making a chain 3 and a single crochet around the top of that double crochet there. Then we chain 2, putting a shell in the shell space, chain 3, putting a double crochet in each one of the next 2 stitches, chain 1, double crochet in the stitch, chain 1, double crochet in the stitch, chain 1, double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, chain 3, putting a shell in the shell space, chain 2, putting a double crochet in the stitch, chain 3, putting a single crochet around the top of that stitch, chain 2, and then making our shell. We're going to keep repeating that all the way around. So I will meet you right back here. See you in a little bit. So we just finished up round 21. So let's do a quick review. We did our beginning shell, chain 3, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, chain 1, skipping that chain space, putting a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Going to chain 3, skipping that chain space, putting a shell in the next shell space. We then chained 2, skipping that chain space, put a double crochet in that next stitch, chain 3, putting a single crochet, like you could call it a front post single crochet, around that same stitch right there, pulling it nice and tight. We then chained 2, putting a shell in the next shell space. We did that all the way around. So let's start round 22. We're going to be working on the cheekbones, the under the cheekbones type area. So we're going to slip stitch into that chain space, chain 2, and then double crochet, chain 2, working our DC tog. We're then going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put a double crochet in this chain space right here, right next to those 2 stitches. We're then going to put a half double crochet in this next stitch and a single crochet in the next 7 stitches and chain spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then going to put a half double crochet in the next stitch and a double crochet in the chain space right next to that. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And we're working our shell in the shell space. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to skip this and we're going to put a shell directly into the next shell space. Chain 3, double crochet in the chain space right next to that stitch, half double in the next. We're going to single crochet our way across once more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 single crochets. We're going to half in the next and then a double in the next chain space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 2, and we're doing that shell space. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, putting a shell in the shell space. I will review in just a moment. Okay, so we start off with our beginning shell once again, chain 3, putting a double crochet in that chain space. Going to do a half double crochet in the next stitch. We're going to single crochet our way all the way across to the stitch. That's 7 single crochets. Put a half double crochet in that last stitch and a double crochet in that chain space, chain 3 and shell in the shell space, chain 2, shell in the next shell space, chain 3, double crochet in the chain space, half double crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to single crochet our way across 7 spaces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then we're going to half double in the next, double crochet in the next chain space, chain 3, shell in the shell, chain 2, and shell in the shell. We're going to repeat that all the way around, and I will meet you back right here. See you there. Okay, we just finished up round 22. So let's do a quick little recap. We did our beginning shell, chain 3, double crochet in the chain space, half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we worked 7 single crochets across, working in the stitches and the chain spaces, putting a half double crochet in that last stitch there, and a double crochet in the chain space. Working chain 3 right there. We then put a shell in the shell space, chain 2, working a shell in the shell space, and we did that all the way around. So let's start with round 23. The under the eye part of the cheekbones and the nose. So let's make our beginning shell, same as we've been doing. We're then going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put 2 half double crochets in this stitch right here. So 1, 2, and we're going to put a single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to give us our nose, so we're going to skip this stitch and put a single crochet in the next one. We're going to put a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches there. And I like to put a single crochet and a half double crochet right here. It differs a little bit from the pattern, I know, but it makes it look a little bit neater. Okay? So we're going to put a single crochet and a half crochet right here, and then a half crochet in that last stitch. It just makes it a little neater looking. Okay, I know that might sound a little weird. So now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put a shell in the shell space. We're going to chain 1, putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 3. Let's do another one of these, part of the skull again. We're going to skip the chain space, putting 2 half doubles in this next stitch here. Single crochet in each of the next 4. Chain 4. We're going to skip the stitch, put a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. We're then going to put a single crochet and a half crochet in the next, and then a half crochet in the next. Chain 3, shell in the shell, chain 1, and then shell in the shell again. We will do a quick review in just a moment. Get my hook back in there. Okay. We are We started out the round by doing our beginning shell, chain 3, skipping the chain space, putting 2 half double crochets in the next stitch, single crochet in each of the next 4, chain 4, and then we're going to skip 1, putting a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. The next stitch we are going to put a single crochet and a half double crochet, and then we're going to put a half double crochet in that last stitch. Chain 3, shell in the shell space, chain 1, shell in the shell space. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around, and I will meet you right here. I'll see you there. So let's do a quick recap. That was a beginning shell in the shell space, chain 3, 2 half doubles in the next stitch, a single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches, chain 4, skipping a stitch, and then a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. In the next stitch we did a single crochet and a half double crochet. The following stitch we did a half double crochet. We then chained 3, skipped the chain space, and did a shell in the next shell space, chain 1, and a shell in the next shell space. And we worked that all the way around. So let's start round 24. We're going to slip stitch into that first shell there and work our beginning shell. We are now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the chain space, skip what's now considered a hidden stitch, and putting a DC tog in the next stitch. We're now going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, putting a half double crochet in the nose to make the bridge of the nose. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skipping 5 stitches and putting a DC tog in the next stitch. We're now going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a shell in each one of the next 2 shell spaces. Let's do a quick review. We did our beginning shell, then we did our chain 3, skip our chain space, and our DC tog in the next available stitch, which means we have to skip that little hidden stitch there. So our next available stitch, we put that DC tog, chain 5. We're going to put a half double crochet in the little nose loop right there, building the bridge. We're going to chain 5, skip 5 stitches, and put a DC tog in that next stitch. Going to chain 3, skipping the chain space, and in each one of the next 2 shells, we're going to put a shell in each one. So a shell here and a shell here. And we're going to repeat this all the way around for round 24. Okay. I will see you in just a little bit. Hey, we just completed round 24. And so we're going to do a recap. So we did our beginning shell. We then chained 3, skipped our chain space, skipped what could be considered a hidden stitch, and we worked our DC tog in the next stitch. So then we chained 5, put a half double crochet in the nose, building the bridge, chained 5, skipped 5 stitches, putting a DC tog in that last stitch. We then chained 3 and worked a shell in each one of the next 2 shell spaces. And we did that all the way around. So now we are on round 25. And here we go. We're going to go into the shell space, working our beginning shell, same as we've been doing. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip this chain space right here and put a half double crochet in this stitch. We are now going to put 6 single crochets in each one of the next 2 chain spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to put a half double crochet in this next stitch right here. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skipping the chain space and putting a shell in the shell space. We are going to now chain 2, 1, 2, putting a shell in this shell space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skipping the chain space, putting a half double crochet in this next stitch here. Putting 6 single crochets in this chain space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Make sure you do those nice and neatly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Working a half double in that next stitch right there, chain 3, 2, 3, and shell in the next shell space. Chain 2 and shell in the next shell space. I will do a review in just a moment. Okay. We worked our beginning shell in the shell space, chain 3, skipping the chain space. We worked a half double crochet in the stitch, worked 6 single crochets in this chain space, 6 single crochets in this chain space, a half double crochet in this stitch right here, chain 3, shell in the next shell space, chain 2, and we shelled in the next shell space. And we are going to do that all the way around, and I will meet you back right here. Well, we just wrapped up round 25, so let's go and do a quick review. We did our beginning shell, we did a chain 3, we skipped the chain space and worked a half double crochet in the next stitch, and then we did 6 single crochets in the chain space. We skipped this stitch and did 6 single crochets in the next chain space. We followed that by a half double crochet in that last stitch right there. Chain 3, and we worked a shell in the shell space, chain 2, and worked a shell in the shell space. We did that all the way around. So let's go and start round 26. Make our way to that chain right there, that chain space there, and work our beginning chain, or our beginning shell. I'm sorry about that, our beginning shell. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the chain space, skip what's considered a hidden stitch, and we are going to single crochet across the next 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to skip this next stitch. We're going to single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a shell in the next shell space. We're going to chain 3 and work a shell in the shell space. Chain 3. We're going to skip the chain space, skip what's considered that hidden stitch, and then do 6 single crochets. So single crochet in each of the next 6. 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to skip the next stitch. We're going to single crochet in the last 6 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Chain 3, skip the chain space, shell in the shell space, chain 3, we're going to shell in the shell space, okay. Now let's do a quick review. We did our beginning shell, chain 3, skipping the chain space, skipping the first stitch, which is considered a hidden stitch, single crochet across each of the next 6 stitches, skipping a stitch, we're going to single crochet across the next 6 stitches, we're going to chain 3, skipping that chain space, going to put a shell in the shell space, chain 3, put a shell in the shell space. Right here you're going to end up with 12 single crochets and 2 skip stitches. Okay, so you need 12 stitches right here. Okay, so I will meet you when we get right back here. Okay, see you in a bit. Well, we just finished round 26. So let's do a quick review before we start the next round. We did our beginning shell, chain 3, skipped the chain space, skipped what's considered a hidden stitch, and then we single crocheted across the next 6 stitches. We skipped a stitch and then crocheted across the next 6 stitches. Chain 3, skipping the chain space, put a shell in the next shell space. Chain 3 and then put a shell in the next shell space. So I hope you did that all the way around, and we are now on round 27. We're going to work our way into that next shell space and do our beginning shell. Going to chain 3. We're going to skip this first stitch and then single crochet all the way across 10 stitches. So we're going to skip this one and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the next stitch, skip the chain space, and put a shell in this next shell space. We're now going to chain 2, 1, 2. We're going to put a DC tog in this chain space. Now, just like we put that little decorative element right here, we're going to do that again right on this one. So we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to put a single crochet nice and tight right around that. Going to chain 2 and then put a shell in the next shell space. Let's keep going for just a bit. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skipping the chain space, skipping the first stitch, and putting a single crochet in each of the next 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, skipping the stitch, skipping the chain space, putting a shell in the next shell space. We're now going to chain 2, 1, 2, putting a DC tog in this next chain space here. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, single crochet right around the top of that. Nice and snug. Chain 2, and then shell in the next shell space. Okay, let's do a review. We did our beginning shell in the shell space. We then chained 3, skipped chain space, skipped the first stitch, and put a single crochet in each of the next 10 stitches. We then chained 3, skipped the stitch, skipped the chain space, and put a shell in the next shell space. Chain 2, put a DC tog in the chain space there, chain 3, and put a single crochet right around the top of that, giving it a nice tight little hug there. Chain 2, put a shell in the next shell space, chain 3, did our skip chain, skip stitch, single crochet in each of the next 10, chain 3, skip stitch, skip chain space, shell in the next shell. And then we worked our DC tog, our chain 3, single crochet around the top, chain 2, and shell. So keep doing that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end here. See you soon. So we just finished round 27, and so let's do a little recap. We have our beginning shell in the shell space. We chained 3, we skipped the chain space, skipped a stitch, and we single crocheted across the next 10 stitches. Following that, we chained 3, we skipped a stitch, skipped the chain space, working another shell in the shell space. We then chained 2, and we worked a DC tog in that next shell space. We then chained 3 and single crocheted right around the top of that, giving it a nice tight squeeze. Then we did a chain 2. We then worked our shell in the shell space, and we continued that all the way around to the very end, ending with a chain 2 and joining with a slip stitch into the first double crochet there. So let's get working on round 28. Not too many more rows to go. So we are going to slip stitch into the shell, make our beginning shell in that same space there. Now we are going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and we are going to skip the shell or skip the chain space right here and skip the first 2 stitches, and we're going to put a single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. We're not done with that shell space yet though, however. We're going to do another chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to put another DC tog in that same space, giving us 3 DC togs and 2 chain spaces right there. Now I'm going to chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're going to skip this chain space, skip this stitch with the nice little one that was hugged around it. We're going to skip this chain, and we're going to put a shell and a DC tog in here, just like we did here. So we're going to end up with the 3 DC togs. So DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog. Now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip the chain space, skip 2 stitches, and crochet in the next, or put a single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. Chain 3, skip the next 2 stitches, skip the chain space, and once again we're going to work a DC tog in that shell space, a chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Skipping all that stuff, and in here doing our DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, and DC tog, chain 3. Okay, let's do a quick review. Okay, so we did our beginning shell right here. We then chained 3. We skipped the chain space, skipped the first 2 stitches, and put a single crochet in each of the next 6 stitches. We chained 3, skipped 2 stitches, skipped the chain space, and then we worked a DC tog, a chain 2, a DC tog, chain 2, and a DC tog in that shell space, giving us 3 DC togs in there. Then we did a chain 10, and we skipped these 2 chain spaces and this stitch, working another 3 DC tog and 2 chain 2 spaces. So DC tog, chain 2, DC tog, chain 2, DC tog in that shell space, chained 3. We skipped our chain, skipped 2 stitches, single crocheted in the next 6, chained 3, skipped 2, skipped the chain, and we worked our DC togs in the next shell space. So you keep going, work that all the way around, and I will meet you at the joining. You are ending with a chain 10. Okay, I will see you there. Now that we have our final 10 chain stitches here, we will need to, you know what? I messed up at the beginning. That means all of you have too. So we're just going to remedy that, and I'm going to show you a quick little switcheroo. Okay, so what we're going to do, because we were supposed to have 3 in here. Yes, I know. And I will show you. I even have it underlined. Yes. And I forgot. But that's okay. That's okay. We'll fix that. So after we did our chain 10, we're going to go right into that. Now this is a fix. We're going to work our DC tog. And then we're just going to work a half double crochet. Right there. And that's it. That's our fix. That's our fix for that little spot, although we could probably get away with doing a double crochet in there. Let's do a double crochet. It'll give us a little bit more room. Okay. So just once again, let me show that to you. since I screwed up, which means all of you were misled and you screwed up too with me. It's my fault. My fault. I did it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is after you chain the 10, we're going to put a DC tog in that same space as the beginning shell, and I'm going to use a DC into that top of that first double crochet there. And we're right as rain. We're exactly where we need to be for round 29. Yeah. So yeah, that wouldn't have been fun to have to frog all the way around there. No, but we fixed it. See? No harm, no foul. So now we will chain 2, 1, 2, and we're going to put a double crochet in that same space there. See, no harm, no foul. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And we're going to put a shell in this next chain space right here. Okie dokie there. Now we are going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to skip this chain space, skip the next 2 stitches, and we're going to put a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Okay, we're going to chain 3. We're going to put a shell in the next little shell space right there. I'll move my hand in just a second to show you. Now we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in this chain space right here, we're going to put a regular old DC tog, just a single. Okay. Now we're going to chain 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going to skip this chain space, and over in this little chain space right here between these 2 stitches, we're going to put our DC tog. Going to chain 3. In this chain space right here, we're going to put our shell. Let's keep going for just a moment, and then I'll do a recap. Chain 3, skip our chain space, skip 2 stitches, and put a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. Chain 3, putting a shell in the shell space. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and putting our DC tog in the next one right there. And then we're going to chain 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, let's do a recap real quick. Now, remember I led you astray, so hopefully you fixed that and added that extra one in there. If not, rewind back to the timestamp for this round, and yeah, you'll be able to watch that again. So then what we did was we chained 2 and did a double crochet in that same spot there. We chained 3, working a shell in the next shell space, chain 3, working, and then we skipped, after our chain 3, we skipped our chain space, skipped 2 stitches, put a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. We then chained 3, skipped 2 stitches, skipped the chain space, working a shell in the next shell space. We chained 3, working a DC tog in the next chain space. We then chained 12, skipping the chain space there, putting a DC tog in this next space right here, chain 3, working a shell in the next shell space, and then we just keep repeating that all the way around, and we are going to end with a chain 12, and we're going to put our slip stitch and join it into that first double crochet. So I will meet you right over here and keep a going. Let's wrap up round 29. So we're ending it with a chain 12, and we're going to put it, attach it with a joining, or join it with a slip stitch into that first double crochet right there. Now for round 30, we are going to slip stitch into this chain space right here, and we're going to do our beginning DC tog, which is our chain 2 and then DC right in there. We're now going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put a shell in the shell space. Now we are going to chain 2. 1, 2. We're going to put a shell in the next shell space. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put a double crochet or a DC tog in this next chain space right here. Now we're going to chain 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're going to skip the chain space once again, and we're going to put a DC tog in this next little chain space right here. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Working a shell in the shell space. Chain 2. We're going to hop back over to this shell space right here, putting another shell in there. Chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting a DC tog in the next chain space. We're going to chain 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, let's do a quick review. That's going to be a pretty simple repeat for you. So after we did our joining, we slip stitched into the first chain there. We did our beginning DC tog, which is a chain 2 and a double crochet. Then we chained 4 and we put a shell in the shell space, chained 2, skipping the chain space, the 2 stitches in the chain space, putting a shell in the shell space. We then chained 4, working a DC tog in the next chain space. We then chained 13, skipping this chain space, putting a DC tog in the next chain space. Chain 4, shell in the shell, chain 2, shell in the shell, chain 4, DC tog in the chain space, and then we work our 13. Now we're going to repeat that all the way around for round 30. And so I will meet you right here, and I'll keep on trucking. Let's finish up round 30 with our chain 13. We're going to skip our chain space here, and we're going to join with a slip stitch in top of that first double crochet. Now this round is going to be a little bit of fun. This little section here has to be one of my favorite parts I've ever written in a doily. It just looks so regal, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's called Crown of Skulls, because of the crown effect that this helps create. So we're going to go slip stitch into this next chain space here, and we're going to start our DC tog, same as we've been doing, our chain 2 and then our double crochet. We are now going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put a shell in each one of these 2 shell spaces, so shell here and shell here. My bracelets are jingle jangling. I worked on this pattern and this video for you for about 8 hours yesterday, and I had to quit, and I had enough of it. So now I'm in a little bit better mood. If you can hear, I'm a little bit perkier than in the previous rounds. It's because it's a different day. Okay, so after we did our shell and shell, we chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope. We're going to put a DC tog right here in this next little chain space. Now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a single crochet in this chain space right here. We are now going to grab this chain right here and put a single crochet around. We're going to put these together, okay? Kind of pinching them together. We're going to put a single crochet around the 2 of them. Okay? Now we're going to grab this third one, and we're going to put a single crochet 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to forget this one. We're done with that chain right there. So we're going to put a single crochet around these 2 right here. Now we're going to forget about that one too, and we're just going to put a single crochet around this one. We're now going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to skip this stitch right here and put a DC tog in this chain space. Going to chain 4. We're going to work a shell in each one of the next 2 shell spaces. I'm working my way over there to show you that little area again, because it's fun once you get it, once you understand it, that you're going to be working in with the 3 different chains, and you're going to be working over them. Yeah. So after we did our shell and shells, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, putting a DC tog in this chain space. Chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Here we go again. We're going to put a single crochet around just this single chain right here. Now we're going to put a single crochet around both of them, wrapping them both up together. Now we're going to grab and play with this little guy down here. We're going to put 3 single crochets now. 1, 2, and 3. Oop, 3. Now we're going to put 1 single crochet around these 2. Now we're going to put a single crochet around just this one. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to put our DC tog next to that one. 2, 3, 4. Now let's review. Now you might have to play with your little strands a little bit and straighten them out to make them even. You can see that this one's a little crooked. You just put your thumb on the center, kind of pull. Okay, that's why if you don't put your single crochets on there too tight, you can easily maneuver that and put it more in the center. Okay, so what we did was we slip stitched into that first chain space. We worked our beginning DC tog where we chained 2 and then a regular DC, chain 4. We worked a shell in each one of the 2 shell spaces, so shell here, chain 4. Let me pull that up so you can see a little bit better. And we put a DC tog in this chain. We then chained 3, working a single crochet in just this. Let me grab a little, here's a pencil. So we put a single crochet around this chain right here. We then put a single crochet around both of this one and this one right next to it. Then we put 3 single crochets around all 3, making them all into basically one space. Then we forgot about this little guy and we put a single crochet around these 2. Remember, this is the one that we just made there. So we put a single crochet around these 2. Then we forgot about this one and put a single crochet around that one. Then we worked our chain 3 and our DC tog in this chain space, chain 4, shell and shell. Let me go over that one more time with you. We did a chain 4 here, DC tog in this chain space. We then chain 3, and we put a single crochet in this chain space right here. We then put a single crochet around these 2, and then we put 3 around all 3 of them. We then put a single crochet around 2, single crochet around 1, chain 3, and then put a DC tog in this chain space. Okay, so let me pull up here real quick, just in case you need it, because sometimes that's a little confusing. We put 1 single crochet here. We then put a single crochet to both of them. We then put 3 single crochets attaching all 3 of them. We then forgot about this little guy, putting a single crochet around these 2. Forgot about this one, put a single crochet around this one. We then chained 3 and did our DC tog right there. Okay, so I hope you get that, and you work that all the way around until the end, and I will see you right here. Talk to you soon. Okay, did you make it? Did you finish that round with, did you do that pretty good? I know it's a little bit of a complicated round, but yeah. Okay, so what we did was we did our beginning DC tog in that first chain space there, which, remember, that was our chain 2 and a DC. Then we did our chain 4, putting a shell in each one of the shell spaces. Chain 4, putting a DC tog in that chain space. Chain 3, I'm going to get out my handy dandy pencil again, or here, I'll take out another crochet hook. That way I won't have to fear about writing or putting graphite on my doily here. So then we did a chain 3. We put a single crochet around this chain, put a single crochet around both of those chains, and then we put 3 single crochets around all 3 of them. We then forgot about that one, put a single crochet around 2, forgot about that one, put a single crochet around the next one. We then chained 3, putting a DC tog in this chain space, chain 4, putting a shell in each one of the shell spaces. And we did that all the way around. So now we are on round 32. And we're going to expand this just a little bit more here. So we're going to get into this chain space, and we're going to once again do our beginning DC tog, our chain 2, and our double crochet. We are now going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to put a DC tog, just a single DC tog right here. We're going to put a regular old double crochet right around in between those 2. We're going to put another DC tog right in this chain space right here. Okay, so that was a DC tog in the shell space, a regular double crochet between the 2 shells, and then a DC tog in the next shell space. We're now going to chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to put a DC tog in this chain space right here. We're now going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to single crochet in this chain space. We're going to single crochet across all 7 stitches there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're going to put a single crochet in the next chain space. Okay, going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Going to put a DC tog in this chain space, chain 5, keep going back to my notes, 2, 3, 4, 5. Going to put a double or DC tog in this chain space, a regular double crochet in between, and then a DC tog in the next chain space, chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, putting a DC tog in this chain space, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to put a single crochet in this chain space. We're going to single crochet across each one of the next 7 stitches. And we're going to single crochet in this chain space, chain 4, putting a DC tog in this chain space. We're chaining 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now let's get a review, or do a review here. So we did our beginning DC tog, we did our chain 5, DC tog in this shell space, a regular double crochet in between these two, and then a DC tog in the next shell space. Chain 5, DC tog in that shell or chain space. We then chained 4, putting a single crochet around this chain right here, and then single crocheted around in the next 7 stitches. Single crochet around this chain space, chain 4, DC tog in the next chain space, chain 5, DC tog in the shell space, double crochet, just a regular old double crochet in between these 2 stitches, and then a DC tog in the shell space, chain 5, DC tog in this chain space. And we're going to do that all the way around till the end. We're going to end with a chain 4 with and we're going to join with a slip stitch on top of that first double crochet right there. So I will meet you back right there. Wonderful. Let's do a little quick review. So we did our DC tog, our beginning DC tog right here. Remember that was a chain 2 and a double crochet. Chain 5, DC tog in the shell space, single or just a plain old double crochet right in between these 2 stitches, and then a DC tog in the shell. Chain 5, DC tog in this shell space, chain 4. We put a single crochet in this chain space right here, and then we single crocheted across all 7 stitches, putting a single crochet in this chain space. Chain 4, or sorry, yes, that's a chain 4, and then a DC tog in this chain space, and then it was a chain 5 and a DC tog in the shell space, double crochet in between these 2 stitches, a DC tog in this shell space, and chain 5, DC tog in this chain space. And we did that all the way around for round 32. So let's move on and work on round 33. We're on our last 3 rows. Yes, isn't that great? Yep, or 1, 2, 3. Yeah, last 3 rows. We're on round 33, and there's only 35 rows, so we're doing good. Okay. So let's slip stitch into the next chain space. We're going to do our beginning DC tog, chain 2, double crochet. Now we're going to chain 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. and we're going to skip these stitches and put a DC tog in this chain space. We're going to chain 2. We're going to skip this stitch, skip this chain space, and work a triple crochet into that first stitch. Going to chain 2. Put a triple we're going to skip a stitch and put a triple crochet in the next one. Chain 2. Ooh, we're not skipping stitches. Chain 2. Now we're going to skip the stitch, skip this chain space, and put a triple crochet in the next stitch. We're going to chain 2, putting a triple crochet in the next one. Chain 2, putting a triple crochet in the next one. We're going to do that all the way across in every one of those stitches. So we're going to chain 2, triple crochet. I just had to read my notes. I haven't done this pattern in a little bit. So we chain 2, triple crochet in the first stitch, chain 2, triple crochet in the second stitch, chain 2, triple crochet in the third stitch, chain 2, triple crochet in the fourth. Now we're going to chain 2. This time we're going to skip this stitch and working a triple crochet in the next one. Chain 2, triple crochet in the next one, chain 2, triple crochet in the next one, chain 2, triple in the next, chain 2, we're going to skip the chain space, skip the stitch, and put a DC tog in the next one. And we're going to chain 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let's do a review. Since I was confused by my own pattern there, got to make sure we do our review. Okay, so we did our beginning DC tog right here, which is the chain 2 and a double crochet. We then chained 10, skipping these 3 stitches, putting a double crochet or a DC tog in this chain space. We then chained 2, putting a triple crochet in that stitch, chain 2, triple crochet in the next, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2, and then we're skipping the middle stitch. And then we put the triple crochet in the next one, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2, triple, chain 2, triple, chain 2, and then we skipped the chain space in the stitch and put a DC tog in the next one. So that's our repeat. We have a total of 8 triple crochets right here, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, 7 chain spaces in between those stitches right there. So total of 8 triple crochets, and then the chain spaces in between. Okay, keep repeating that, and I will meet you back over here. And we're almost done. Almost done. So, how did you do? 2 more rows to go. So let's do a quick review. So we had our beginning DC tog, which was, remember, if you for some reason don't remember by now, it's a chain 2 and a double crochet right next to each other. We then chained 10, skipping the 3 stitches. We put a DC tog in the next chain space, chain 2, skipped the chain space, put a triple crochet in the next one, chain 2, triple crochet in the next, chain 2, triple crochet in the next, chain 2, triple crochet in the next, chain 2, we skipped a stitch, and then we put the triple crochet in the next one, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2, triple crochet, chain 2. We then skipped the chain space, skipped the next stitch, and put a DC tog in the next one, chaining 10, and then which would lead us back to here. So hopefully you are all set in that one, and we will move to round 34. Now this one's going to be a lot of double crochets, okay, or DC stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into this big chain space here, and we are going to chain 2, and we're actually going to work our beginning DC tog just like we have been. We're now going to chain 2, and we're going to put 12, yes, 12 double crochets in this chain space. Make sure you make them kind of nice and neat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Let me double check that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're then going to chain 2 and put a DC tog in that same chain space there. Okay, so we worked our beginning DC tog, chain 2, 12 double crochets, chain 2, and a double or a DC tog in that same space. We are now going to chain 2. We're going to skip this stitch, skip this chain space, and put a single crochet in the next stitch. We're then going to chain 2, put a double crochet in this next one, chain 2, putting a single crochet in the next one, chain 2. We're going to skip this chain space, skip this stitch, and put 7 double crochets right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Going to chain 2, skipping this stitch, skipping this chain space, and putting a single crochet in the next one. Chain 2, skipping the chain space, putting a double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 2, putting a single crochet in the next one. Chain 2. Now we're going to skip this chain space, skip this stitch, and put a DC tog in this next chain space here. We're then going to chain 2, and if you remember, we're going to shove 12, yes, 12 double crochets in this chain space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Chain 2, putting our DC tog in there as well. Then we're going to chain 2, and let's do our review. And if you can kind of see, you got a little crown going here, don't we? And if you look, we have each one of these triple crochets. You have this chain right here, then you have this one and this one here, and then this one here. And you have that open space, which is right there, and it repeats on the other side. So it really does look like a crown. So if you've ever wondered why it's named this, it's because it's got crowns in it. Okay, so let's go into our review. We did our beginning DC tog in this big chain space here, chain 2, we shoved in 12 double crochets, chain 2, shoved in another DC tog in there. It does all fit. We then chained 2, and we skipped this stitch right here, skipped the chain space, and put a single crochet right into that top of that first triple crochet. We then chained 2, put a double crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, put a single crochet in this next stitch, chain 2, skip the chain space, skip the stitch, and we jam-packed 7 of those babies right on in there, 7 of those double crochets. We then chained 2, skipped this stitch, skipped the chain space, put a single crochet in that next stitch right there, chain 2, double crochet in that next stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, skipping that chain space, skipping that stitch right there, and like we did over here, we put a DC tog, chain 2, shoved 12 of those double crochets in there, chain 2, and put our DC tog in there. So we're going to repeat that all the way around, and I will meet you right back here so we can start that last row together and all of the dreaded bumpity bump bumps. I refuse to call them pickets, picots, but yeah, if you've watched my videos before, we just call them bumpity bump bumps because it's more fun to say. So you work these all the way around, and I will be right back with you when we start the last row. Okay, see you there. Okay, are you ready for the last round, round 35? Oh, I know I am. I'm ready to go sit down with underneath a blanket and snuggle up with a cat or two. Oh, chilly, chilly, chilly. But alas, I won't be able to do that. I'm going to be editing it. So, yes, that way it'll be to you faster so you can work on this with me. So let's do a quick review of round 34. What we did was we did our beginning DC tog in this chain space. We then chained 2, working 12 double crochets in there, chain 2, and sliding in there an extra DC tog, chain 2, skipping that stitch, skipping the chain space, putting a single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, and we put 7 double crochets in this middle space right there, chain 2, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, DC tog in the next stitch, chain 2, single crochet in the next stitch, chain 2, skipping the chain space, skipping the stitch, putting a DC tog in that next one, as well as a chain 2, 12 double crochets, a chain 2, and a DC tog, chain 2, and we repeat that all the way around. So let's get started on round 35. Now this one has a lot of those little weird bumps that we all love or hate, but they're not going to be the typical ones. They're going to be my altered ones. So it'll go by a little quicker for you, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to slip stitch into this next little space here. Now we're going to be jamming a lot of single crochets into a lot of these little chain spaces here, okay? So if you do find it's too tight, just omit one, okay? It's okay. No one's going to count them. No one's going to know. And if you find that your chain spaces are a little bit bigger, slide an extra one in there, okay? It's all good, okay? You're going for the look of it, not really the count so much. Although if you did everything right, you should be fine on your count. So we're going to slip stitch into there, chain 1. We're going to put 5, yes, 5. 1, single crochets, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Told you, we're been jamming a lot in there. Like I said, if it's too much, take one out. I think I'm going to take one out. The pattern calls for 5. I'm just going to do 4 in there just because to me, at this point in time in this doily, 4 works out best. The next doily I make, I might be able to put 5 in there. Next doily after that, I might be able to put 6. So yeah, just keep it in that range. Keep it either 4, 5, or 6, okay? Right there. I'm going to choose to do 4 in this one. So now we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip this first stitch, and we're going to put a double crochet in this next one. We're now going to chain 3. 1, 2, whoop, come on. 2, 3, and we're going to put a single crochet. See how I put my hook right in between there? We're going to put a single crochet right around that stitch right there. Okay, now we're going to skip the next stitch. We're going to put a double crochet in the next one. We're going to chain 3, put a single crochet around that. Once again, making it nice and tight. Then we're going to skip a stitch. Okay, now we're going to slip stitch right into that next one. And the pattern says 5 single crochets in there, but this point in time it's a little on the tighter side. So I'm just going to put 4 right here. The next doily I make, I could maybe squeeze in 5, I could squeeze in 6. So just kind of go with the flow, how many you can personally put in there, okay? But I think it's going to be 4 this time. So we're going to chain 1, put 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochets in there. See, that's a little tight. I'm glad I chose 4 this time. I'm then going to chain 2. I'm going to skip this first stitch right here, and I'm going to put a double crochet right in this one. Going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to put a single crochet right around the side of that double crochet I just made, hugging it nice and tight right there. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm then going to skip this next stitch and put a double crochet in the next one. I'm then going to chain 3, do that again, give it a nice little hug, chain 2, skip the next stitch, put in a double crochet in the next one, chain 3, giving that a hug again with a single crochet, chain 2, skipping a stitch, putting a DC in the next one, chain 3, single crochet around the top of that again, giving it a nice tight squeeze, 1, 2, skip, double crochet, chain 3, then give it another little tight squeeze with a single crochet, chain 2, and then we're going to actually skip this next stitch right here, and we are going to go directly into the chain space. Okay. Oop. Sorry about that. We're not going directly into that chain space. We're going to put a slip stitch into there. Wait a minute, that's not right either. Squeeze that really nice and tight. Chain 2. Put a double crochet in the next one. We're going to chain 3, squeeze that nice and tight right there with another single crochet, chain 2, and we're going to put 4 single crochets in that little space. We're going to skip the next stitch, put 2 single crochets in each one of the next 4, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chain spaces, putting 2 apiece. Now we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip the first stitch and put a double crochet in the next one. Chain 3, just like we did before. Give it a nice tight squeeze. Going to chain 2. Skip stitch. Put a double crochet in the next one. Chain 3. Give it a nice squeeze there. Chain 2. Skip stitch, DC in the next one, chain 3, give it a nice squeeze with that single crochet, chain 2, and we're going to put 2 single crochets in each one of the next, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4 chain spaces there. I will review in just a moment. Okay. Now you can really see the crowns, can't you? Okie dokie here. So, what we did was the pattern calls for 5. This particular time, I only did 4. Like I said, just depends on how big your space is right here. Sometimes you might be able to do 4, 5, or 6. You just want to fill in that space right there, okay? So we're doing 4, or I'm doing 4 on here. You can figure out the number that works best for you. So I did 4 single crochets. I then chained 2, skipping the first stitch, putting a double crochet in the next one, chain 3, and then single crocheted around that DC right there, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one, chain 3, and then single crochet around that double crochet right there, that stitch, hugging it nice and tight, chain 2, and I did that again. I did every other one, and then when I got to the end, I did my very last double crochet, chain 3, single crochet around it, and then I chained 2, and I put 4 single crochets in that space right there. I then skip stitch, and then I put 2 single crochets in each one of the next 4 chain spaces. Chain 2, skipped the first stitch, double crochet in the next one, worked one of my bumpity bumps, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet, worked one of the bumps, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet in the next one, worked the bump, chain 2, skip stitch, put 2 single crochets in each one of the next 4 chain spaces there. Okay, so now you can really see why it's called Crown of Skulls. You get a crown here and a crown right here. So I'm going to continue on. You continue on, and I will meet you at the very end. See you there. We are all done. Oh, did you make it? Oh. Yeah, whew. That last row will get you with all those little bumpity bumps. So let's do a quick review where we went into this chain space right here, did our slip stitch, chained 1, worked 4 single crochets, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, chain 3, single crochet around that double crochet stitch right there. We then chain 2, skip stitch, DC, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, skip stitch, DC, made our bump, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, skip stitch, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, skip stitch, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, and then worked 4 single crochets right in here. Then we worked 2 single crochets in each one of the next 4 stitches, or 4 chain spaces, I mean. We then chained 2, skipped stitch, worked our double crochet, made our bumpity bump on top, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, skip stitch, double crochet, made our bumpity bump, chain 2, skip stitch, and worked our 2 single crochets in each of the next 4 stitches. Then we did our repeat by putting the 4 single crochets right in there. So I don't know if it's going to be attached to this or a separate video, depending on if I have a 1 or 2 parts to this video to see how long it is. I will show you how I block this particular doily. So stay tuned, or otherwise, follow the link in the description below to watch me do it. Just depends on how I edit this. So either way, all the links and all the information will be down in the description. So please don't forget to like and follow. And you can pick up your patterns at Creative Works by Annie on both Ravelry and Etsy. Those links will also be in the description down below. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you had fun. And hopefully you make quite a few of these big old beauties, because they are quite lovely. So try it in other yarns. Try it in a worst weight cotton yarn and block it and make a nice beautiful bed doily. I'll try to find a picture and put a picture of that somewhere up here before I go. So you have a wonderful day, and until next time, toodaloo.